And without further ado, there we go. Hispanic Heritage Talks 2020, where we have Carlos Zamora. Carlos Zamora is a creative director, specialized in aligning business, brand, strategy through iconic illustration, storytelling, and typographic excellence. He's an award-winning visual strategist with a passion for simplifying, clarifying, and amplifying brand experiences people love. He graduated from Havana's design school, left the country, and has lived in St. Louis since 2006. He's a former president of AIGA St. Louis and currently serves as board member for Lambert International Airport Art Advisory Committee and the Tennessee Williams Festival. He has a fondness for poster design, Russian cartoons, propaganda art, and cigars, Cuban or not. He's also an incredible illustrator. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Carlos. And I will now stop sharing the screen so that he can actually give a good share.
Awesome. All right, so can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Coming up. Here we go, full screen mode.
All right, I'm gonna turn my video off and mute now.
All right, so can you guys see perfectly everything? Good. So, okay. So here we go. Thank you guys for inviting over. I mean, I want to make sure that you guys can see this. I just need some sort of feedback saying, yes, I hear this before I stop talking. Everybody went on mute.
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the feedback. So, okay, so basically, I'm super excited to be here and be part of St. Louis Design Week. I've been super involved with AIGA since the very beginning. I came to St. Louis, and AIGA has always been an outlet for community, for connecting with people with the same mindset, and to grow your practice as a creative. So, I'm going to present today a selection of work that I've been doing. Some of the people in St. Louis have seen this in campaigns in the street. Some other folks, from other chapters that are joining, you'll see new things. So I'm talking to these two audiences, knowing that some of them are more aware or not with my work. So let's share so here we go. So we are from St. Louis, Missouri, the Show Me State, for the ones that are joining from different chapters. This is a beautiful city right in the middle of America, with a lot of amazing opportunities and a huge creative talent that is blooming, and it's just succeeding. And thank you in grand part to the labor of AIGA and initiatives like Design Week. So this is a great opportunity because now we are connecting not only the work that we are celebrating among ourselves, but we're also connecting with the rest of the network of AIGA leaders all over the United States. And also, these presentations are gonna also be part of the AIGA network, and they will basically multiply our effort and our impact into the work of design at large. So a little bit of my story. I was born in Cuba, as you all know now, and I've been in the United States for the last probably the fourth part of my life. I'm also American now, so I'm basically I'm Cuban American for the last since 2006. So for the last 14 years, and being part of that dual identity, Cuban and American, just reimagine yourself in a new label of what, a Latino or Hispanic is, which is something that, I was just Cuban or, just a guy before I came to the United States. But it was interesting, like how, once after coming here, you are tapping into this new identity that you're trying to navigate, especially when coming from a context that has had so much contradiction with the American lifestyle. Because, since for the last 60 years, our countries have been, in dispute. So, trying to conciliate those two realities, the Cuban reality that is still very alive and very suffering the hostility of this country, and also being grateful for what this country has provided. So living in those two worlds have provided that sense of outsider and engaged outsider perspective, when you really have to learn how to live, how to live your life, and coming to terms with your past and also looking forward for the future. So just to give you a little bit of just to paint a little of the color of what it was perception growing up of the United States. So this is basically, Cubans, we inherited a very hostile culture coming from the United States. So I was born in 1976. I'm a son of the Cuban Revolution. I never knew how things were before that. My childhood was, in the middle of what's called, a Cold War kid, in the middle of this dispute between, the tiny island and the big empire. So we had a huge Russian influence growing up, because in the 80s, Russian culture basically took over the Cuban one. And for some reason, if you have here, this guy right here, this is a Cuban, this is a Russian cosmonaut and a Cuban one that worked together. And this is a beautiful kind of image of how the world used to be in the 80s when I was a kid. And that was kind of like my dream, like looking after, the big city, the big opportunities that were actually in Moscow or northern big cities like New York or the United States. So basically, the United States was the enemy that I needed to learn to, and now I'm learning to live with. So from that influence, from that in my early, childhood, we got, for some reason, all the propaganda and all the communist thing didn't really to cover, because the things I remembered and the things that I embraced were like the richness of the Russian culture that was coming through illustration. And in a way, especially when I, now I'm an adult, and sometimes childhood is actually the only place. So you go to your childhood and your memories to nurture your influences and to understand the world you are, that you live as an adult. So growing up, that was my, this was my background. This was like the things I used to go the Saturday in the morning to pick up my Misha magazine coming from Moscow. It was just 40 cents. I was super afraid of this guy, Ronald Reagan. That was my biggest fear as a kid. And just to give you an idea of how different and, how your cultural heritage and your culture, your roots can impact the way you are, especially when you decide to go into a career as a creative. When you pull from those influences all the time, and when you're trying to really understand how the world works for brands, clients that we serve. So, these were that kind of like my influences, a lot of, high, super attention to detail and storytelling, a beautiful, sense of geometry and color. And those things came with the Russian influence that I had growing up. It's kind of like ironic, that because, Russia now is the big enemy of democracy, but that was not the perception when I was a kid. So, from that time also, in a way, Cubans also did a lot of poster design. That is basically, every Cuban designer that it's alive today in the island or outside of the island owns a lot to these masters of the 60s who were like poster makers, designers like you and me, who were able to seize the, connect with the moment they were living in and create this amazing, iconic manifestations of culture in the form of poster. And they were able to talk about issues like, the Black Panther movement or the war, the guerrillas of liberation guerrillas in Latin America. And politics, film and culture all were intertwined in a very bold and iconic graphic metaphors that basically resonated and created these graphic milestones that now we can refer and go back. Because in a way, poster design is in a way, a sense of graphic history. So from those masters and for that capability of synthesizing ideas into powerful, iconic expressions, that's where I learned that in a way made me just to, be able to pivot and use that capability towards brands and corporations and the people I work for. So, because it is in the art of poster design, the art of synthesizing, clarifying and amplifying an idea. So from there, those were kind of like the roots that made me the designer that I am today. And it also gave you a sense of, a sense of voice, a graphic voice, but also a point of view. In all these posters, what comes across is the sensibility and the subjectivity of the creative individual behind the art. And through poster design is probably, the only way that a designer can really express it himself or herself, because usually we are in the service of others, and the good design is actually invisible, except in poster design. When you're doing a logo and when you're doing an illustration, your name doesn't come across. But when you're doing a poster, it's like you're having a point of view. So just to synthesize, this is pretty much my design life. Since I went to design school graduated in 2000, I was in the Cuban Gazette, a magazine, for a couple of years, and Casa de las Americas in Havana. Went to Quito, lived there for 2 years, came to St. Louis, worked for an in-house corporate, creative firm, Fleishman Hiller, then Kiko Bar and Company, which was more like a design boutique design firm that I spent 7 years there and was like a master PhD in design. And then I went into corporate America as a creative director when I really understood how to scale the design experience and focus on formulas instead of form, and be able to multiply the effort and create these solutions that will impact, an organization that had 85 million members, 35,000 employees. So orchestrating internal campaigns and external communications in corporate America was really an interesting exercise for 5 years. And we did a bunch of, rebranding after merging and all of that. So it was a really great school. So after that, and after all that experience, I kind of like crystallizing all the experiences in one agency that, with other two partners, were coming together and creating Cartel. And Cartel, the name of Cartel, is basically, it's a tribute to poster design. Cartel, it's not just a gang or like a drug thing that has that connotation, but in the way we use cartel means poster in Cuba. It's the word that is used, is the term for poster. So we're a tribute, it's a tribute, and it's an honor to acknowledge that those are the roots where good design comes from in our culture. So a couple of awards, and recently, just to give a whole picture. And then let's talk about a little bit of the work that we've done over the years, and now it's coming along in beautiful logos, posters, campaigns, and things like that. So we're here to inspire each other. We're here to show the work and see how we think and we approach things. So at the origin of the whole thing, it's about synthesis. You are synthesizing ideas into very very simple ways to pack the identity of a brand. So these are some of the logos, and behind each of these logos are websites, campaigns, whole universe behind each of these stories, and they're very personal, because a logo, it's basically is the less most important thing in a brand. It's just that punch of identity that is charged with all the meanings and connotations that a brand stands for. So over the years, we've been able to work for different type of companies and organizations that have really inspired us and working together. So some of the work that I've been doing recently is around illustrated branding, which is basically a different way of approaching illustration. Illustration is, I'm sorry, I have a visitor here. Come here. Stella, it wants to come in. I have a cat. So illustrated branding is about creating these graphic languages to enhance the graphic discourse for a brand. So these are some of the illustrations that I just created for Emerson. It's a company cold chain supply. So it's basically, they wanted to illustrate the concept of, going from farm to fork. And they have such a vast array of employees, some of them in China. So language was really, not having language was important. So things that people could react and have an emotional reaction to the essence of who they are, and actually be engaged and excited about what they do and the value they bring for the organization. So these are some of the posters that I've been working, recently. Well, this is a mix of them. We have a new coming up, the new theater, the new season for the Tennessee William Festival that is coming. It's coming in form of radio. So theater is not because of COVID. So it's interesting that they're going to have these theater plays, but via radio, which I think is pretty innovative and going back to the old days of radio listening. And so the whole play is going to happen there. So these are some of the posters that I've been doing over the years, and they, in a way, help to tell a story and to create traction towards an idea, an event, a celebration. And these are usually extensions of the brand, and this is what I call ephemeral branding. It's a collateral parallel story that comes along that is that is presented by a brand, but you can just play and go a little bit beyond of their brand standards, because actually this is an ephemeral event. So over the years, this is these are one of the things, that I love, connecting to the heritage of Latino roots here we have in St. Louis, it's called Cherokee Street, which is very creative, indie, independent type of creative vibe in that street. And they have this Latino, the Cinco de Mayo festivities. And, we created the branding for them. And this one got an award. And it was selected with one of the top 10 Latino illustrations, according to American Illustration. So it was a pretty cool exercise of, celebrating La Raza, celebrating the Hispanic traditions, because there's not a big community in St. Louis, so that's why I'm so excited about these talks. So, one of the projects that I have this year, the pleasure to work on, was a collaboration with Nespresso. They were launching the new Cafecito de Cuba brand, and they wanted to have a Cuban illustrator to be part of their campaign. So this was a really fun project. It was these illustrations celebrating, the memory of childhood and the playfulness of Cuba, in a very simple graphic experience. So this was filmed, we have video you can check out, look for Drink It All In video. I'm not gonna play it tonight. It was a very, we spent a week in Miami filming the whole experience of making these coffee cups. And it was really, really a lot of fun starting the year with that process, before COVID hit it. So this is a local brand. It's called Clementines. And for the people in St. Louis, they know what Clementine is. People outside of St. Louis, this is the hottest ice cream shop in town. And they have, they're growing exponentially. It's like they have like 4 different locations now. And they approached us to create a graphic for National Ice Cream Day at a time where there was a lot of, they were trying to, they also deliver ice cream to other parts of the United States. And when they approached us to do this National Ice Cream Day, it was at the moment, it was July. It was at a moment when it was really, there was a lot of civil unrest, and the national discourse was about, people marching, protesting, Black Lives Matter, all of that. And I thought about, wait, this would be an interesting, this brand they call themselves, naughty and nice, because they have some of these flavors, they have alcohol, and those are the naughty ones. So the brand had some space to create something that was a little bit more beyond the ice cream coming together experience. So basically the poster here depicts, it's kind of like a march of people coming together with all different flavors. And of course, done in a very subtle way, but it's a tribute and a salutation to the moments that we were living at that time, in a way that it's acknowledging the racial differences and the racial tensions. And I always feel like if every time that there is an opportunity to highlight, the benefit of difference and to show that level of, social responsibility, I think, it's a cool thing to do. And it was very well received by people supporting Clementines. Clementines, it's a nice, ice cream shop in gentrified neighborhoods. So having that in St. Louis, so having that diversity and acknowledging that and celebrating that, all those flavors coming together, it was a message that we were proud of, since we were trying to, bring people together through ice cream too. So this was a project, Pier 57 in New York, that it was basically the biggest project I illustrated. These were like 20 something windows in a pier in Chelsea, right in front of the Chelsea market. And basically, they wanted to replicate, they loved the Diablo poster, the devil, and they wanted something with that intensity and that passion and those colors. And I come up with this idea of, this is a pier that is by the Hudson River. So technically, this is a development that is the headquarters, it's one of the headquarters for Google, and is the first location, it is the first garden, top roof garden right on the Hudson River in Manhattan. So it was a pretty cool project to be part of, because bringing these illustrations, kind of like, created this story that it was this character, this octopus coming out of the Hudson River to celebrate, to bring people together and to attract, create some buzz in social media and that. So basically what we did here was illustrating the windows, the facade, and the walk. How do you say? I say that in English now. I'm blocking that word. The sidewalk. So basically, you create this experience where kids can kind of like follow that and then go into the main door. You following the direction of the fish, of all the fish. So it's really cool, fun project that got a lot of visibility and traction. And it was right at the heart of the whole, mural district in Chelsea. So we were really proud of that. This is a project that we did a long time ago, St. Louis's Culture City, that basically took over the idea of this poster of, this was for Lomayo Sculpture Park. It's a park of sculptures in St. Louis. I think it's one of the biggest in the country, if not the biggest. And they were celebrating the concept of a sculpture. And they created this conference where they were bringing developers, artists, and public, and the public, to talk about the value of a sculpture to the public space. And basically, and this was a conference that was hosted here in St. Louis. And the title of the concept was Monument Anti-Monument. They wanted to define what is a monument, what is a sculpture, and do you need a pedestal for a sculpture? You have like it's public activation, public art, it's performance part also. It's a monumental. It's also considered a monument. So basically this whole experience was to highlight the value of public art in the development of the public space. So the poster was basically took the opposite shape of the arch, celebrating the arch in a negative space. So basically the poster was saying, let's look at monuments in a different way. So you create this egg made of the opposite shape of the arch and the shadow of the arch. And then with the list of the top-notch sculptures in St. Louis, we created this city, this virtual city that had this movement. And it was really cool it was very celebrated at a point. So then we have the websites and all of that, going, with panels that were hiding things. It was kind of like a highbrow, contemporary art type of approach. So, this this Block 37, it was a development in Chicago. It's one of the biggest malls in Chicago, right in the nearby Millennium Park. And I participated as an illustrator and creative director in this initiative. And it was basically celebrating the urban development of that region, of that area in Chicago, trying to activate an old mall that was not, the client for this was the leasing company that was trying to attract more tenants to the mall, and the art direction for the photography was trying to create these landscapes that was like inspired, Bauhaus inspired, just trying to show like a little bit of a city made of with these blocks, right? Celebrating the name and also complementing that with illustration to basically create, a complement to photography. So this was the first time that I did illustration in a way that was really just being part of the brand narrative. And this was a project that opened the doors to other bigger initiatives. So here is, a local brand for, since we are, I'm Cuban, I love cigars. This is a brand I've developed in town for my friend, Carrie Brennan's. And this is, this is a pipe tobacco cigar, and that, I'm a cigar aficionado myself. And this has been a pleasure to work with, developing and consulting and creating this world for Durango, and all the different classifications for the different flavor profiles. The interesting thing, this is part of an initiative called the Micro Tobacconist, that basically creates flavor profiles with pipe tobacco that acquires a different flavors, and you can customize and create your own blend for cigars. So just to talk a little bit more into the corporate space, since time has passed, and I think this was a good experience of showing how design, brand strategy, illustration comes together in the corporate space. I'm finally able to share this work, and since the brand Express Scripts brand has evolved, but this was such an interesting exercise of transforming a Fortune 25 company at a time that now it's part of Cigna, but just evolving a huge corporation with the work of a whole in-house design team. So I was brought to create the experience for the lab, which was the Center for Innovation. And having the previous experience with retail, I was able to kind of craft the idea and the narrative of how the lab and Express Scripts should show up. So I was in charge of a small team who created the narrative for all these different screens and the talk track at the lab, which was the place where the company will bring potential clients to tackle difficult problems in healthcare. So this was a dream project was my job for 5 years. And now, it always will have an important place in my heart because of the dedication and the passion and the team I was able to connect and educate and grow with. So these are some of the examples of, this is when I joined the company, that's what the design looked like. That was the brand assessment at the moment before we did the redesign. And this is how we started to talk about how to move the needle and change the culture, the visual culture, but also the impact in the internal culture for the company. So, this was the first batch of photography that I directed using a local agency in town for photography, Brandon Strobe, amazing people. And it was really important to show, we had the lab was such a beautiful space, but it was more important to show how the space was used, how, present themselves instead of just bragging about the beauty of the space, but showing how people were working there. And this was an opportunity to infuse a sense of diversity, not only by showing people of color, but showing people of color, shooting them in positions of power, which was an important thing for me to have that, to be able to push the needle at that level too. And they were really, it was a really amazing initiative. And this was like great years of my life as a creative director, where I was able to develop, leadership management capabilities and beyond the creative execution space. So, the brand standards that we created for Express Scripts, emphasizing the use of color ratios and moving from a corporate, stodgy and hard to evolve brand into a more modern and more human brand. And then after the brand standards were developed, I was able to, go back to the old, propaganda techniques and illustrate a value proposition with visuals that were able to speak to the value of the company. And at that point, the value prop was pharmacists matter. Basically, the company was focusing on creating, coming up with interesting solutions in the pharmaceutical space or in the pharmaceutical benefit management space. Very complex concept, but the simplicity of the icons, it just gave a new life into a brand that was evolving. It was very well received, and after that, we were able to create, define our 3 different audiences: the employee experience, the B2B, and the B2C experience, and be able to impact, understanding what of those, what was the need for all those different audiences, and expand that into, or project, how it could look like the whole integrated brand experience. So, and then, those in space, we created a space for illustration and for iconic, bold, memorable messaging, since the value of the company was really, trying to come up with, solutions for healthcare and making healthcare more accessible and making medicine more affordable. So there was a common thread there about social commitment and social responsibility that we were, that allowed for this type of treatments in graphics. So these are some like examples of how things were projected, and that's the story. So I'm trying to rush it, trying to leave some time for questions or to conversation. So thank you for listening. Anna, can I?
Great. Thank you, Carlos. All right, I will share my screen now, and we're going to make this up available for any questions. I know that one of the first questions that I saw, Carlos, was people wanted to know can they order or buy your posters anywhere?
Well, yes. The short answer is yes. You can contact me, and I might, I don't sell them. But if you want, I have copies of some. I can send you one. So it's like it's fine. I usually don't. I get I get hired. It's like a commission, so I don't think it's fair to sell them. Honestly.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, here we go. The official Q&A time. Oh, thanks. Yeah, my partner brought me some dinner. That's so wonderful. Great timing for everyone. I think the next question that we have is, let's see. When creating large-scale illustrations like Pier 57, how do you plan for the experience of these multidimensional graphics? This person imagines you do lots of photos of the site, but at the same time, the experience of seeing gigantic graphics on walls as well as floor markings must be challenging to set up. Could you tell us about the process and how you worked with the vendors that implemented the painting of these arts on the location?
So, okay, so basically you have to start the project thinking you cannot do it alone. So you are part of a team, and you are there to serve. So ask the questions and ask the next immediate, focus on the next immediate step. It was really daunting to illustrate such a big thing. So I had a great relationship with the architects who were part of the development, and they provided the elevations for it. So I was able to illustrate. Illustrator is very limiting because it's not infinite scale. So I worked. Basically, what I did is I created a document at scale that had the 21 windows, and each window was my artboard in Illustrator. So when I put my illustration on top of it, and I saved and exported as a PDF, or basically each illustration was cropped as the window. But basically, I had to, and that was a very simple. It was very complex to do it, but it was a very simple way to create a standard process, because we had changes and I needed, it was crazy to illustrate that level of scale. I was during 2 weeks, I was literally working all the time, taking naps of 4 hours. And then, we would sleep for 4 hours, continue working, 4 hours, continue working. Because you go from sketches to, color test to, like execution. So there's a lot of steps in the process. So there was a company, a Puerto Rican company from New York, who illustrated the sidewalk. So they painted it based on the files that I provided. But my output was just, all vector files, humongous vector files.
Cool. The next question that we have is from Jessica. How long did it take you to identify your illustration style?
That's a great question. Illustrators, I don't consider myself an artist. I've always said that. And that is that's kind of like a half truth. Okay. So my education was very design, very Bauhaus, very like design oriented. Illustration was really a skill I acquired over the years since I wanted to differentiate my practice. And it was more like an exercise of self-sufficiency. So I needed to create things on my own, so I became an illustrator. Therefore, there's good things and bad things about that. I have not one style, I have several styles. And that is a problem in the illustration industry. Hardcore illustrators, they just develop one way of doing things. I think I have a lot of geometrics, a lot of hand-free, a lot of, depending on the scale, I switch from one style to the other because I need to administrate the bucket of energy to get to the finish line. And more intricate work, you just have to be careful when you switch things. What I do consider a style is a methodology. My methodology is really my style of work. The output and the look and feel, it's really, I'm not that focused on that. I focus on the process of how am I connecting, what is the story I want to tell, and how do I create that iconic, memorable experience. That could be interpreted in different ways from the array of styles that I can pull from. I don't know if that answers the question, but I don't think I have a style. I don't see it, at least.
Oh, I think you have a style, Carlos. But no, I think it's a good one. We have another question about your illustration. It's from Natasha. Your style is very interesting and varied. The influence from the Cuban cartel is palpable. Where do you find your inspiration now?
I find my inspiration a lot of, I do a lot of cooking. I love to cook. I have 2 daughters, so I'm always working. So if I'm not working, I need to be doing something that is productive and for the family. So, I'm a big fan of cooking shows. I'm a big fan of cooking in the kitchen. And, like when I'm mixing ingredients, I found like, I'm thinking in my head how to tackle a problem while I'm in the middle of the mix of ingredients and doing that. So cooking, it's like a side creative type of thing. And then, some self-initiated projects that if we have the time, I think I promised that in this thing. I have one project that if we have the time and we want to see it, I'll be happy to show, but I just want to make sure that, we start a little bit late and there are questions. So
yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Do you have a favorite dish that you like to cook? This is for me, Andrea.
Yeah, I love to cook.
Yeah, you have a favorite dish to cook?
Well, I do the ropa vieja. That's my go-to. Like that's the Cuban thing.
Of course.
And there are no restaurants in San Luis, a Cuban restaurant. So my kitchen is the only Cuban restaurant here.
I feel that. No, I feel that.
Right.
I feel the same with my sopaipillas, because in Chile we make them so differently than everybody else. We put like squash in our sopaipilla, so it has this like extra little sweet depth to it.
Corn. I did it with a little bit of corn in it. That's my own thing. Well, there's a question here about education in Cuba. That's a cool, how was my education in Cuba compared to here in the United States? Well, that's a great question. That's loaded, but I've been able to teach, in some design schools, and things are so different. We're different worlds, and it's not fair because, coming from a culture that's a different, in Cuba, how was my education? First, my education was free, so I paid nothing for it. So no student loans. Think about that. Just say it out loud. It's kind of like shit, because here is so expensive. So we had, it was free. It was free, and we had the access. We were taught, all our design professors were architects. So a lot of like big fans of Frank Lloyd, or big fans of the Bauhaus of mid-modern century, and a lot of like form, function, like very rigid, which I think you see that in my work too a little bit. Like I don't go off the charts. There's always a grid behind. I think the difference in approaches in education in Cuba is like we see design as we start defining the limitations. So basically we build the walls, we build the limits, and we find the solution within those, instead of the approach in the United States where it's like, oh, there's more freedom. I'm like, no, I hate freedom. Give me limitations, or build the walls so you can build things inside, like kind of like narrowing down the solution to make sure it's aligned with your strategy.
Yeah. So a question that we missed a little bit ago is from Andrea Coates. I'm not sure how you pronounce your name, so I'm going to go with either one of those. And they ask, you seem to have mastered a variety of avenues in image making. What do you prefer? Illustration, logo creation, design, or art direction, and why? What's your preference?
Okay. So for me, it's really about the process. It's connecting and aligning with that client and understanding, what is the solution, and if illustration is a good fit for it. Almost 100% of the time, you can solve the problem with illustration. And I go to illustration as a manifestation of art direction because it's a skill I have, and because I think it provides a value that creates more emotional, it connects to the brand in a different way. I do appreciate art direction a lot, especially in photography. When I've done it, I rest. So I'm more like the master puppeteer, without having to be executing every single pixel of that illustration. So I don't know, I kind of enjoy a little bit of everything, really. So I couldn't choose.
Yeah, fair enough. From Batsheva, are there any Hispanic or Latinx designers or illustrators that you follow and want to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my biggest inspiration, and this was a designer from which I learned to give back and to connect with the creative, because I learned that from him. This is a Spanish designer who went to Cuba and in 2003, and he just opened a whole, he just opened the world for me in the way he presented himself and the way he built his persona, his work, and the way the work was aligned with who he was. And his name is Isidro Ferrer. So this guy, look him up. It's like, I think there's in social media, there's some guy who did a page that says Isidro Ferrer is God. So I followed him a lot, and it was a huge inspiration. He will build meaning from fine objects, and he will create like sculptural things and very poetic, very, it's pure graphic poetry. He has been consistently like my go-to designer, but mostly not only because of the work, because you can find other people that inspires you in the work, and names like of course Milton Glaser, and in the Latino arena, Edel Rodriguez, big fan, and friend to Cuban. He has been in St. Louis. He's like a great guy who opened a lot of doors for me in the illustration world in New York. So another designer that I follow, a friend and a great, it's kind of like my brother, in Jacksonville, Eduardo Sarmiento. So we, look him up. I think he presented actually last week in Hispanic, in the Latino, talking from Jacksonville. So yeah, gosh, there are a lot out there, but Adele, Sarmiento, Isidro, Pepe Menendez in Havana, which is the father of contemporary Cuban design. Great guy too, great poster maker and thinker. So yeah.
Awesome. And I think we have one last question from Sophia. How or where do you think you marry your roots or early influences to the work you put out today? As a designer or art director, is that something you seek for?
Okay, yeah. Sometimes the industry calls you because you are, because of your roots. In this case, for example, it's a great example. The Nespresso work, they wanted to have a Cuban guy, so they wanted a Cuban guy who could do the work, and that was an amazing opportunity, and I will do it 300 times again. But sometimes I feel like, for example, yesterday I just finished an illustration for the LA Times. And there's a trend where people they just want that colorfulness, and they want what they have seen, So that's why I think that the industry has this, capacity, has the capacity to put you in a bucket, So it's up to you, find a way to jump out of that bucket and be in a different place. So yeah, sometimes because there are some days when it's okay and it's great to be Cuban. There are other days when I'm like sick of it. So really, so I don't want to, shake that maraca every day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not great to be stereotyped either. Does anybody else have any questions? I don't think I missed any. Unless I did, please tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's all cool. So, I don't know if you guys are feeling it, or, do we show the last tiny project, or how do you feel in it?
Well, how about this? How about I offer people an opportunity, that went the other way, an opportunity to thank them for coming. Unidos for everyone. And if before they leave, if they need to leave now, if you could please fill out our survey at bit.ly/Unidos HHT, it would be most appreciated. So those for anybody who need to leave right now. But if you want to stick around for, I don't know, maybe 10 more minutes, we can probably keep this going, possibly. What do you think, Anna? Maybe
it's good.
All right, it's good. Great.
Yeah,
all right.
Going on.
Okay. So for the ones who are staying, this is how you survive a pandemic as a creative director. So
I will stop sharing so that he.
I can share that. Here we go. Yeah, it has been, this whole exercise of the pandemic and, launching a new company, all of that has been really intense. So I created this project just to keep my sanity. And this is something I'm going to share. And it's kind of like it's a new little thing. And you're going to see it in a minute. Here we go. So this is okay, let me see what can you guys see it? Not yet. Share screen. And we're gonna share it like that. Can you see it now?
Yep. Beautiful.
Cool. So I created this project called The Forest Within. It's a picture book. And it's a story of self-discovery and experimentation and transformation. It's about the story of this kid who gets into a forest. And it's also, I live nearby Forest Park. So it's kind of like a tribute to Forest Park as well. And during this pandemic, I've been taking long walks and doing a lot of interest, like just being isolated, and finding a lot of creative relief in picture books and telling the story. So look that up. It's gonna come out pretty soon. So I just wanted to show you that little piece of graphic, and I think we're done now.
Oh, that was so much quicker. I still have bread in my mouth. Great. Yeah, no, this is really, really beautiful. And Carlos, thank you. Thank you so much for taking your time to create this presentation and sharing your work and your words with us. I'm sorry, I'm trying to finish this bite. Okay, great, delicious. Yeah, The Forest Within, that's so beautiful. I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of that when it comes out. So yeah, everybody else, I think we're probably ready to wrap this up. So let's see.
Thank you so much for joining us, Carlos. And
Absolutely.
Again, everyone check out the rest of the Unidos events coming up tomorrow and all of next week. And then St. Louis Design Week events are still going strong tomorrow. And then there's a little event on Saturday and another one on Sunday. They're local. We're also partnering, I forgot to mention this, I don't know if anyone here is from Denver, but we're also partnering with Denver Design Week, and you can check our Facebook page for details, but if you use a code, you can get a discount on their tickets. And yeah, they've got some really cool events too, and they're helping promote us. So check out Denver Design Week. That's starting on the 19th, I think, if you need some more design stuff for filling up your October.
Yeah, and actually there is one last question, Carlos from Natasha. Do you have recommendations for students who will enter the job market during these pandemic times? I think it's a really important question.
Yes. Let the work do the work. So focus on creating, curating your portfolio and generate the type of work that you want to do and the type of work that you want to attract. So internships are still available, and it's a viable choice to have having experience. It's always good to have like a mix of self-initiated projects that kind of like give an idea of the type of who you are as a creative and the interest that you have. And please hit me up. I would love to connect with young students who are hungry to work on things. We always like finding opportunities for internships at Cartel, and we need help. So yeah, hit me up. I would love to have like a young Latino student, or just to join the gang.
Awesome, that's great. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for asking that question, Natasha. That was really, really important, and I'm sorry that I missed it at first. So great advice and really great opportunity even.